Welcome and welcome back to my channel. It is so lovely to have you here, and if you're new here, just know that this is home for you. This is where we get to unpack everything to do with beautiful living, luxury, working in fashion, living in Paris because this is where I'm currently based, as well as anything in between, everything about creating a beautiful life and making sure that whatever chance we get on the side of eternity, we make it meaningful, we make it beautiful, and we make it worth the while. So yeah, today's video is also a vloggery vlog. Well, the first part will be a vloggery vlog. I should stop saying that. In the city, I'm going to meet up with my best friend for one of the activities, and yeah, she's visiting me from Zimbabwe. Isn't that exciting? By the way, if I haven't said, I'm from Zimbabwe. I've been living here for a few years now, but yeah, I'm originally from Zimbabwe. And so yeah, we're gonna do that, and I'll be taking you guys along with me. It's really hot today in Paris, and we're excited because it's the beginning of summer. So just a little bit of context about what we're doing today. We're going to be visiting the African Style Archives. They're doing an open library exhibition in partnership with Byredo, the perfume people, and I think this is part of it's important because part of owning our identity or understanding our purpose in fashion is in documenting, archiving, and digging deep into the history of where we came from, why we do what we do, and just the creative, the artistic, and the visual narrative that shapes our creative DNA. And so this has been curated by Motown Girl, shout out. It's here for a few weeks, I think it's a week right now. It's an open library that is going to be open to the public for a week, and I thought I should visit and see some of the collections or some of the books that they have in the collection. It's going to be really, really nice. My hope in sharing this experience is to also invite you to think about why you do what you do, but to also understand the place for fashion history, fashion philosophy, and also just our history as a people. So depending on wherever you're from, I'm from Africa, I'm from Zimbabwe, I think that's a conversation that you always think about. Whatever line of work you do, it's not just about fashion people or luxury. It's just about what you do in life. Whatever you do in life, whatever industry you're working, it's important to understand where you're coming from. That way you've got a better appreciation of where you are and also clarity on where you're going. So yeah, I just thought that would be a fun little activity to do together. And all right, so we're gonna leave the house now, and then we'll record the rest of the video afterwards. But yeah, I'm excited. All right, so we're back home now, and I had a really good time, guys. I think I'm going to do a lot more vlogs around that, a lot more videos around feeding your intellectual curiosity, feeding your creative or artistic appetite, especially if you're going to work in the fashion industry. But you let me know if you guys want that, or you want me to focus on like just learning programs. I'm happy to do that as well. Oh yeah, and by the way, so funny, I want to say remind me, but you guys are not here to remind me, but I have to remember to share some of the courses that I've discovered online that have been helping me, I guess, helping me in my career evolution. And I'm going to share a bit more of that maybe in this video about how my career has been evolving. And I think these are very important courses to do if you want to have a more open-minded perspective on fashion. And this is not just about fashion as well. I know there's some of you that are watching that are not particularly working in the fashion industry, but if you want to work in the creative fields, entertainment, beauty, I think these are also relevant to you. So yeah, I'm gonna remember to share details about another course that I discovered that I've just started. I started 2 days ago. Sign-ups are still open. I'll double check that and put the link in the description box below. But anyways, without much further ado, let's go. Context about what we're talking about today. I share a lot about my journey in the luxury client relation space. It's not me sharing as an authority, it's just me sharing as someone who's learning as I go. There've been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of detours in my journey. The authoritative figure, I'm sharing as somebody who's curious, somebody who's learning as she goes, somebody who wants to get the most out of my career and is being transparent enough because I want to learn. I learn from you guys as much as you learn from this channel. So I share a lot of reflection points, experiences, questions. So yeah, if you want to hear that side of, well, I guess it's the same thing as here, but if you want to read it in a more, I guess, LinkedIn format, please do follow me. So yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to follow me on my LinkedIn. I post at least once every 2 weeks. It's not my favorite platform, but I think it is necessary. And if you're a creative person who wants to work in more structured environments, you do need a LinkedIn account, and I'm sure by now we all have one. We're finally starting, right? So I met Ishika Sharma on LinkedIn. She reached out to me based off some of the posts I've been sharing. I think the LVMH one actually, and her questions I think are relevant to a lot of you. From my understanding, most of you are students or you're recently graduated. You're thinking about your career evolution, and if you're not in fashion, this is also relevant to you because I think the answers apply to people that are also thinking of career pivots. So yeah, there's about five of them or four of them, and I will also just be sharing my perspectives. I'll be expanding on some of the questions by sharing some of my perspectives beyond just answering the question directly. So, first question, from your experience, how effective are client experience or retail roles as a pathway into brand marketing within luxury? How do people typically make that transition? So, this is a very great question. I guess I had the same question about 2 years ago when I'd started at Paul and Joe. I'd been working at the Bon Marché and I was transitioning into a different role within the same brand at Paul and Joe because I started off as a junior sales associate. So that's basics. You're just, you know, you're like, you're an intern who gets paid. So you're assisting mostly. You don't have actual client accounts on your, like, you're not managing any client accounts. You just, you're making sure that everybody looks good doing their job, which is a great experience, especially if it's an entry level role. You are learning the ropes, so you're getting paid to do it anyways. It was very important for me because I was coming from design and I needed to understand the world of retail. So yeah, that was a great entry point. And then I was now transitioned. So I was promoted to senior sales advisor. It was very important for me at the time because transitioning from design and creative direction and product design, all of that stuff, you have no idea what goes on the retail floor. You have no idea what goes on in client relations. You have no idea about marrying brand strategy, storytelling, and client experience, ultimately sales. So yeah, it was great for me at the time. And then thankfully, praise the Lord, I was then promoted to senior client advisor. And I also have my own portfolio of clients that I manage, which is, I guess, the fun part of the job for me. So, anyways, to answer the question more specifically, stay with me. And retail at its core, or sales advisory, is essentially you getting in front of the client. So think of it that way. The CEO is at the top of the brand, or the creative designer. So corporate is CEO, you've got the directors, you've got the managers, supervisors, assistants, etc., etc., etc. On the creative side, you've got creative director, art director, senior designers, assistant designers, product managers, filters down to the intern who's, doing fabric collections, doing swatches, etc. So all these two different branches, their core aim is to serve the client. And guess what? As a sales advisor, as a client relations personnel, you are in front of the client. So you hold the keys, okay? And I think that, especially somebody who loves design and wants to understand the psychology behind fashion and like why women or men buy what they buy, like the decision process behind buying, I enjoy having conversations with my clients and just understanding why they picked this white shirt from this brand as opposed to a white shirt from the other brand. And you'll be surprised at some of the decision making processes behind all of these things. So I think, in my experience and observation, and then also looking at the data that has been shared by platforms like Vogue Business, Business of Fashion, etc., etc., client relations allows you to get all the data. You're the person that is essentially sent to test out whether all the decisions that these two different departments have made actually make sense, because you're meant to convince them to buy something. You're meant to walk the journey with them. By the way, I'll touch on the sales and the relationship part at the end of this question. So yeah, you're meant to test out if that theory that they've suggested and then solidify it into a physical garment, if that theory makes sense. And I think that that is important because you're collecting data on the floor. You understand why women want shorter dresses, not long ones, why they want fitted blazers as opposed to the boxy cut, why they want, form-fitting jeans as opposed to the boyfriend cut. You will understand why they're even asking for an off-white shirt as opposed to a pure white shirt. You're essentially gathering all the data that the top guys are going to have to use in their next collection, that the top guys are going to use in their buying process, that the top guys are going to use in, the investments or research and development for the next fabrics for the next two collections. And I think that we underestimate that role because we don't have the right perspective around it. We can dumb it down to just, oh, I'm just selling clothes. You're not just selling clothes, you're creating connections, you're building relationships, you're storytelling, you are the face of the brand. That's why they call it, and love that in France, it's the wording around is that you're a brand ambassador. However, I have to say this, you have to be strategic in what client roles or client facing roles you're applying for. Don't just apply because they pay you well or you like their clothes. Think long term. What do I mean? You have to come up with your vision. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you probably have a vision of where you want to work in fashion or in the creative fields or in the luxury space. Think about your end goal. Do I want to become the head of buying? Do I want to be a merchandiser? Do I want to be the head of clienteling? Do I want to be a marketer in fashion? Think about where you want to end up and then work it back. Somebody I know, a friend of mine always talks about outcomes, like what outcome do you want out of this, right? So if you're going to apply to a brand, think about how working at that brand will get you to your end goal. So think of brands that have a clear career evolution pathway for you, because a lot of brands, when they hire a CDD, which is the short-term contract for France, they just want you to fill up a role, you know, make some money for a certain period of time and then let you go, because they don't have a budget for long term. A CDI is more expensive and it's harder to get in France. So when you get one, just know that you're locked in with the brand for life unless you decide to leave one day. But they can't essentially just fire you without reason, as opposed to CDD, which is short term, it's fixed. When you're done, you move on with your life, right? So think about a brand that is going to allow you to evolve in a manner that aligns with what you want. What do I mean? Right. So let's just say that your dream goal or your objective, your this is what dreams are made of, is to work as head of global client relations at Dior, right? This is a safe space for dreamers and doers too. So we dream and we do. Here's how I would approach it. If you want to end up as VP of client relations at a brand like Dior, I would advise that obviously not everybody can just off the bat go work at Dior, even in their sales team, but work for brands that are aligned with Dior. And I think whilst Dior and Cezanne have completely different price points and primarily different clientele, you need to remember, okay, so for example, a pair of Cezanne babies, like the pair of their famous heels, they're going for 165 euros. At Dior, 990 euros, round about 1,000, depending on the style, depending on the season, etc. So completely different roles. But here in France, when you think of French brands, yes, you'll talk about Chanel, Dior, you'll talk about Hermes, but you also talk about Cezanne. Yes, it's on the more accessible side of the spectrum, but it is known as a French brand. And adding on to that, it's a brand that is very intentional when it comes to beauty, storytelling, you know, celebrating all things female, etc., etc. So I think that if you're starting out in France and you've not had any prior work experience, those are great entry points into the industry. Is great because it allows you to understand the ropes of the retail space, of the client experience space, and also what it means to be part of a brand that is intentional about storytelling, branding around beauty, femininity. I think those are roles that you should consider when you're trying to get your first experience in the retail space, into the client advisory space. I also have to be careful though in saying that you need to work with a plan in mind, because before you know it, it's been 10 years and you're still working the same role. That dream of being VP of client relations seems further and further away. You have to be intentional. Are you going to get a short-term contract or a long-term contract? If you're going to do a short-term one, maybe do one where you can renew it twice and then that locks you in with a year. If you're doing 6 months, 6 months, or do a long-term one, but after 2 years, start rethinking about where you're going to go next. And I think by the time you've done 2 years, clock 2 years at Cezanne, Ami, and them, and you're being intentional about everything else to do with your career evolution, you're doing the courses, you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, you're attending networking events, you're signing up for newsletters from all the key luxury schools. If you're doing all of those things, I promise you, you will be able to, you get closer and closer to that dream. Because the next thing is that, yes, it is about hard work, but it's really largely about smart work. So connect with people, ask questions on LinkedIn, engage, attend events. And Paris has a lot of them, be it online or in person. So this is how I would go about it. And I think retail allows you to enter the luxury space because there's a 1,000 retail jobs being posted online on across different job platforms. So you just have to get into the right one, not just any. If your goal is just to make money right now, that's also fair and fine. Get a brand that's just gonna pay you, and then you go about your merry way, pay your rent, and move on with your life. But if you've got a long-term vision to work in luxury brands, I think be very strategic. And then my last point on that is that when luxury brands are hiring for key positions in their departments, they hire individuals that have an understanding of the brand, of the product, and of the clients, right? And even beyond that, or in addition to that, rather, they also hire individuals that understand the business. I mean, obviously, you don't have to understand the math or the financial aspect of the brand, but you also just need to understand, okay, what is their business objective? What is their overall objective? Is it expansion into new markets? Is it, downsizing their is it downsizing on physical stores and focusing on digital commerce? So, and that's the advantage of thinking as an entrepreneur, is that it gets you interested in not only just filling up a position. It's also about approaching it as if that was your business. As a business owner, how would you strategize around business growth and business administration? And I think recruiters are also mindful of the people they hire. They want to see if you understand the business at its core, not just the role that you're being hired for or the department that you're working in. It's also what's your understanding about what we're doing here. So I would say read around, and I think one of my favorite accounts on YouTube, the Fashion Roadman, he talks about reading about a brand, so their creative DNA and their positioning in the market, but also understand their business objectives. Go read their financial report, go read their Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 earnings. That stuff is not fun, I promise you, especially if you think in pictures and color, but it's important, especially if you're going to have to work with somebody. Okay, right. Second question. I spent a lot more time than I thought I would on that first question, so we might have to break this video apart into two, right? So that I also get to, I don't like long form, but if you guys prefer long form, let me know, and I'm happy to do that. I'm here to serve. Beyond speaking French, what do you think differentiates candidates who actually get interviews from those who don't? Secondly, lastly, if you were starting again in Paris today, what would you prioritize in your first 3 to 6 months? So we're going to start with the one that she asked about, prioritization in the first 3 to 6 months. So France, France is a country that is known for a lot of administrative processes, and when you're starting out, it can be overwhelming, but I promise you, if you just suck it up and get it done, it really makes you stay here so much easier. So this is to do with healthcare. This is to do with opening up an account, a bank account. This is to do with housing. This is to do with transportation. It's a country that functions on systems that are also a bit outdated. By outdated, I mean they still rely on their post. You have to actually physically fill in a document, put it in an envelope, and send it by post for a lot of the process. Yes, they are trying to get digital, but I've noticed that for a lot of those digital platforms, it actually doesn't work as well as the post does. So yes, it means that you're going to have to get your administrative spirit on lock, because that's just how the country functions. So if I was starting out as a student or just somebody moving to France, I would do as much research as I can. So you've got platforms like Campus France, I think Erasmus as well. I don't know if it's still functional, but Campus France is a great space to understand how France works. There's also quite a few blogs that have started around moving to France, and I will share some of my favorite content creators that give advice not only on student life, but also just job hunting, transitioning into France, especially from an English speaking country, because everything is completely different, which is normal, right? But you also have that added layer of like everything is in French. So goes without saying, you have to learn how to speak the language. If you haven't moved already, or if you have, make it a habit to have either a podcast playing in French, listening to French music, watching French film, watching French news, or just reading stuff around. There's some easy books to read in French, so read the kids' books, okay? Just get your vocab and your grammar unlocks, because when you move here, everybody, yes, majority of French people now speak English and understand it, but there are people that are very proud of their identity, and I love that about you. Have to speak French. I'm sorry, whether you're buying bread, buying a Dior bag, or okay, maybe luxury is a bit different because they're primarily international in their outlook, but just your day-to-day living, you have to prioritize being able to communicate with the locals in their language. It just makes everything easier. And it's not just about France. I think wherever you go in life, make an effort into getting to understand how the people live, how they speak, how they communicate, because again, it gives you a richer experience. So yeah, get your language on lock, Duolingo, online courses, whatever it takes, just get it done. And if you want to integrate deeper into the French culture or French society, I would advise going to a language school. So you've got Campus France, they do great. They have great programs for people that want to learn more intensively. I know friends that have come here for a year and have been able to advance from A1, A2 to B1, B2. And you also have the Alliance Française, which is where I first learned how to speak French. And obviously in high school in Zimbabwe, we had French classes, but do whatever you can, wherever you can, to make sure that when you move here, you're not saying hello in English. Bonjour, au revoir, etc. And I talked about this in my previous video. So yeah, another thing. So I talked about speaking the language, administrative processes. So do your research on healthcare, opening a bank account, housing, house insurance, transportation. A lot of these things are free. Well, I mean, obviously opening an account is free, but things like healthcare in France, it's free. To get the carte vitale, it's free. Absolutely free. So make sure that you do your research, because it makes your stay is so much easier. As a student, you're focusing on your schoolwork. As someone who's job hunting, you're focusing just on the job hunt. And further on that note, on the job hunting, make sure you understand the French labor system. So I have, in my experience, I felt like this is a country that really, really protects employees. So you might be here for a master's program, but chances are you're going to want to work. You need to understand how many hours you're legally allowed to work. I think it's 60% of the yearly total if you're foreign, if you're a student. I don't know if you're a student. So this is what I did. I was working while studying. It's a job, but if you want to get an actual job, I would advise that you do your research on what a CDD is. So in French, it would be a CDD, a CDI. So a CDD is the short-term fixed contract. It can be for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever the company decides. And then it's got a different operating system altogether, different salary structure. And then you've got a CDI, which is great if you want to stay here long term, because then that's a permanent contract. They have you for life, right? The only way that contract ends is if you quit or you're fired for a reason that can be legally justified. So that's what's great about France and working here. There's a lot of laws that just protect the employee. I would also do research into healthcare. A lot of companies offer great medical insurance, and then you also have the state that pays for the free healthcare, as well as housing, which areas to live, which arrondissement are great for exploring but not great for living in because they're expensive. Rentals are very pricey in France, but I would say that particularly in Paris, I'll speak in the context of Paris. I know it's different from city to city. So maybe you're going to study and work in Paris, but you don't have to live in the city center. You can live in the suburbs, which is a great living experience. Well, for me personally, because I come from a country where there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of nature, so I wanted to have that balance where I work in luxury, in the city, in the beauty, in the buildings and all of that stuff, but I just want to have peace and nature. I want to touch grass when I'm at home. So you need to find out how you can create that balance. Another thing that I think is not talked about enough, or that I didn't know or think about when I moved here or before I moved here, is that you have to do your research into how you can serve the city. Because here's the thing, you're coming here to learn, you're coming here to work, you're coming here to, I guess, start your life again or have a different life experience. Why not figure out how you can serve? So I'm a person that's big on service. So I just have to have a spirit of, okay, how can I add value into the environments that I'm being sent to, into the environments that I'm going to be, exploring in or growing in or working in. And I think France is a great place to do that because they are communities, systems, associations that allow for that in a very structured way. I think so. There's a website called Je vais aider, so which is literally the translation of that is that I want to help, which is so simple, right? And you go online and they'll show you different associations, different events, different clubs that you can join if you want help. So it can be things like, oh, every week you're helping in a school for kids, like just playing with kids, or you're helping in an old people's home, or you're helping with somebody's gardening, or you're helping pick up litter, you're helping feed the homeless. And this is done in groups. It's great because it really allows you to integrate well into the society, into the French culture, into just like your neighborhood. So yeah, it's called Je vais aider. I'm gonna put that in the description box as well if you want to check it out. So yeah, in addition to that, you also have different associations you can help that align with your hobbies. So I love astronomy. I discovered that there's an astronomy or astrology, no, astronomy club. Like there's quite a few that are in the city. Also, there's also philosophy clubs, there is knitting clubs. So these you would probably find on platforms like Eventbrite or Meetup. Meetup is great because every single day you're getting an email about somebody organizing something. If you love hiking, if you love baking, if you want to do wine tasting, there is a bunch of activities around that. So again, join clubs, join associations, join communities that, and something that I wish somebody had told me when I was moving here. So this is not particularly about moving to France. This applies to life in general, especially if you're also starting out in your career or want to pivot, or even whatever stage of your career you're at. I think it's important to stack up your skills. And Emma Grede, don't know how to pronounce the name, talks about this in one of her videos where she's talking about, I think this was about job hunting and how it's important for you as you're building up your CV, rewriting your CV, to look at where there are gaps in your experience and how you can fill those gaps in. You don't necessarily have to go to college again, pay tuition for another degree. Sometimes it's as simple as going to Coursera online. It's as simple as going to Future Learn. Those are great platforms if you want to learn extra skills without having to a move to another country to learn, to attend school physically, or to pay, because these are, most of them are free, but Coursera, I think you pay a monthly subscription of 47 euros. And some, like Future Learn, I did a sustainability course 2 years ago. I paid a flat fee of 70 euros to get the certificate, to get the course. Then there's free courses as well, like Colombia. That's the one that I want to talk about actually. So I remembered. So the University of Colombia, I think that's what it's called, they have a free course on the art of opinion writing. All you have to invest is your time. That's all. But what it's doing is that it's adding skills. It's filling up some holes and gaps. And you never know, sometimes that's what it takes to differentiate you from the next candidate who had a similar experience to you. So that's something that I learned a little. Well, it's never too late, but I wish I learned that, because sometimes as a student, once you're done with school, during your summer break or during holidays, sometimes you're not doing anything productive. So I wish that I'd known this before or around the time that I graduated, and I would have, especially during COVID, I wish I'd spent that time more intentionally. So yeah, you've got courses around project management, opinion writing, digital marketing. Google has a great certification, and of course, the most famous one, the Inside LVMH certificate. These are things you can do at least once every 2 months. You don't have to bog yourself down, because of course I believe in life work balance, so not everything is about constantly learning, although I do love learning. So yeah, read books, go online, watch YouTube channels that are going to feed your mind. So I hope that makes sense. You have to do what you can. You have to be intentional about how you're using your time, how you're using your resources. Yes, the fashion industry, the luxury space, it is difficult. It is not easy to get into, but once you start learning, once you start improving yourself, connecting with people, shooting your shot. One of my close friends, Tandy, always says, shoot your shot at the life you want to live. Yes, shooting your shot is not just about relationships and getting a boyfriend or partner. It's also about your career. And I think if you maintain the same energy, a lot of us will be in better situations. Just that I should throw that in there, guys, because it is true. I've seen people that have gotten their dream roles just because they connected with somebody on LinkedIn and they shared their perspective on a topic that was relevant to their industry. It's simple things like that. Yes, it is difficult. I will not downplay how difficult it is. I've been there. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, what is the point of all of this, right? But I then realized that a lot of these success stories, it's not kids that just went to Harvard and then had multiple degrees from Yale and Oxford. Sometimes it's just about somebody who was at the right place at the right time, or somebody who was kind, or somebody who put themselves out there. And this applies across all industries. So yeah, what we're gonna do with this channel, people in this community, we're gonna do our best. We're gonna shoot our shot at the life that we want to live, okay? And then the last question that Ishika also asked, that I will be addressing in the next video, because that will definitely be about the different roles in fashion. For someone aiming for brand communication and creative strategy roles, what kind of early experiences or profiles tend to stand out the most in Paris? Very good question as well. So yes, I will honor that question with real evidence and data, and I also do my research based off of other people's experiences, because I'm not a supply chain specialist. I do understand the luxury and fashion industries, but this specific question, I will need to get some help. So we're going to do that in the next video, but do subscribe and make sure that you comment and share so that this channel grows and that we've got access to more information and grow together. So we've got somebody that reached out to me from Egypt, all the way in Egypt. Amazing, right? And so she asked a bunch of questions that I will try to answer, but for this specific video, I will address one that I think is very important, and I've been learning this the hard way. But I'm learning these things so that you guys don't repeat the same mistakes, okay? Is it easy? Actually, she's asking, what are the experiences as a student I should have to be ready? And I want to assume that to be ready for the fashion industry, for fashion in France, for the luxury space, etc., etc. I will say that now that I studied fashion, I entered the fashion industry as a 14-year-old back in Zimbabwe, right? So at the time, we did not have a real thriving fashion industry, which is, you know, a completely different story now, because shout out to Zimbabwean designers and Zimbabwean creatives. So my reference points for fashion were largely what I saw on television, and obviously within my surroundings, it's a country that was going through a lot of change, still is going through a lot of change economically and creatively. That's also impacted. So I didn't know what, I didn't grow up around fashion the same way that somebody born in New York, London, Tokyo, even. And so growing up in Zimbabwe, I think I realized, or I had this epiphany, that I wanted to study fashion and impact the world through fashion when I was maybe 14 or 13. I remember I was in high school and I became that girl who's always sketching during classes, who's always watching shows like Project Runway, who's always, collecting and hoarding fabric, who's entering the next fashion competition, etc. That was my way of staying updated. I would collect Vogue magazines, and we wouldn't get like the current edition. We would have to get maybe one that's 6 months old, but that was fine by me. I just needed a reference point to keep the dream alive. So if you are somebody who wants to enter the industry, regardless of where you are in the world, there is always something that you can do to keep the dream alive. Okay, there is always something to do. And now we live in a digital age, so things are completely different now. You have no excuse to not know what's happening in fashion. Subscribe to the newsletters that talk about fashion. Subscribe to the YouTube channels. You've got people like the Fashion Roadman. You've got people like Omondi with the cutting room floor. You've got spaces like One Granary, which is great for those that are based in the EU. So yeah, all I'm trying to say is, wherever you're based in the world, do what you can to make sure you stay informed about the industry you want to get in. And this is not just about fashion. Obviously, across all sectors, this advice is relevant. So I did what I could to keep the dream alive. And now that I'm here, I also realized that there's something that I wish somebody told me at the time, and that's working in fashion does not necessarily mean cutting fabric, illustrating dresses, working on the runway, because that's our understanding of the fashion industry, which is nice, it's sweet, it's cute, and it's also something that could become a reality for a lot of us. And I don't say all, but it's for a lot of us. However, remember, not everybody can be the next Daniel Roseberry. Not everyone can be the next Jonathan Anderson. Not everyone can be, it's not a black and white journey. The journey is not linear, and this is something I'm learning as well the hard way, I will say. But I'm grateful for the lessons, because they've brought me where I am today, and I am living in an answered prayer. Okay, so what I wish I knew when I was a student is that I needed to widen my understanding of what working in fashion looked like, and be open-minded to how I would get to the quote-unquote dream role or dream career. Because I think, like I touched on earlier on, fashion is not just about design, it's not just about tailoring, it's not about drawing and walking down the runway. Paris Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, those are great, but that's not all there is. In fact, to get to that point, there's multiple other sectors that have to come together for that to be a reality. So you're looking at people that are into accounting. Very simple. You can love fashion but love numbers. And what does that mean? Maybe you should pursue accounting and do a course online or engage with people in the fashion industry to then transition and pivot into accounting, but in a fashion house. That allows you to live the best of both worlds. You can do supply chain, you can do logistics, you can do interiors, you can do even architecture. I know of architects that specialize only in designing or building or designing spaces for fashion brands. Because right now, you also need to understand that with the way the world is going, fashion brands are not existing in silos. So you've got a lot of cross industry integration that's going, cross industry collaboration. So particularly for conglomerates like LVMH, there's wellness. So if you're into wellness, you can potentially work in fashion. I know one of my great clients when I was an entrepreneur, still am an entrepreneur. So she was into yoga. She was a yoga instructor. There's a time she did a collaboration with Dior, and she has no interest in working in fashion, but she was able to cross over into that space because she stayed true to her light. And it was watching her experience. I was like, whoa, she actually didn't go to fashion school, but look at her working with Dior. Because this is what the world we live in looks like today. It's not just about, tunnel vision. This is what I want. Yes, there is room, there's spaces, there's moments where you need to have tunnel vision, but to get the best and the most out of your experience and your career evolution, be open-minded, learn stuff, engage with people that work and exist outside of your industry. So yeah, that's something that I would say if you're a student, you need to be mindful of. Preparation journey is not going to look the same as the next person. Yes, it's great to read all these stories online, but rethink your strategy, babes. Rethink your strategy, my friend. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but I think there is enough pie for everyone to go around. We just have to be open-minded. There's roles that are opening up due to AI. So you now see engineers, software engineers, data specialists, data analysts getting roles in fashion because typical fashion people, they only want to. So now you're seeing people that might have had a career at Google or Amazon, things that have nothing to do with fashion, like traditionally. Now they're taking up the roles at LVMH, they're taking up the roles at Chanel, not because they love fashion or they're good at fashion, but because they're good at the hard skills that fashion needs to get to where fashion needs to be in the next 5 years. And this is obviously largely to do with the digital revolution and the introduction of AI. So I don't mean to scare you or to dumb down your dream or to discourage you, God forbid. I just think it's important for us to be wise and discerning because dark times call for great discernment. So yeah, I think going forwards, we're going to be bringing in some guests onto the channels because I want you guys to hear perspectives from different people that have worked or that are working in the industry. I have friends that are now running their own agencies in digital marketing, but they started in fashion but they're thriving in these new career paths. I have friends that have started their own fashion consulting house, people like Ceci. I have friends who are now working in film. All of these perspectives are helpful to guide you in your journey because they've been helpful in mine as well. So yeah, if there's anything else you want me to know, anything else you want me to research on, I'm your girl, okay? I will see you in the next video, and don't make me beg, but please subscribe to this channel, invite your friends, comment, and do all the things that allow us to grow together. And just know that I'm so grateful. I do this because you guys encourage me to do it, but also because I love to learn. Again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys and I mean it. We're a small community, but we're growing, and I'm grateful that I started off with 0 subscribers. Now we're at 118. Maybe by the end of June we'll be at 200, maybe not, but that's okay, because I think what I'm appreciating more is not the numbers, but just the quality of the conversations that we're having. And that was always the purpose of this channel. So yeah, we'll be getting into more non-fashion things. By the way, if you're new here, we don't talk about fashion only. Hi guys, this is just a end of day rant, actually. Well, not a rant, but it's just an honest conversation that I thought I should just insert into this video, because I'll be doing you a disservice by just painting the fashion industry in Paris as glamorous and glorious, when in reality there are days that I question my choices, and today's one of those days. Currently the time is, I think it's about 9:30 maybe. Just got home, 9:30 p.m. Sun is always still out because we're in summer now, but I just thought I should just be honest as well and tell you that yes, I think all of you know that fashion is great. We love the clothes, we love the illustrating, we love fashion show, we love all the beautiful things that fashion mostly, occasionally, or sometimes represents. But you know, there are days like today where I ask myself if maybe I should have chosen a different career path. But the thing is, and I think a lot of you would agree actually, is that when you love fashion and you are pursuing this path, not so much because you just want to earn an income or you just had to choose something to do, you realize that this is your life. This is something that you love with the essence of who you are. And you can try pivot, you can try do something else, you can explore other career opportunities, you can study something else, but in your heart of hearts, you know that it will always be fashion. And I think I've been through that so many times in my life where I open, you know, multiple tabs exploring other degrees, like something completely unrelated to fashion. So I've explored being a social worker because I love people and I love, you know, helping people, and I'm very empathetic and by nature. I've explored law. A lot of my classmates, my friends from high school, they're lawyers now, and a lot of them are well established. I could be in marketing, but not fashion marketing, just random marketing, telling stories about cars, I don't know. And I'm not saying these are easier, but I think there's the pathway in those areas seems to be a bit more straightforward than fashion. Oh my gosh, can you hear the birds and like the dogs? It's like this is my favorite part of the day, late nights and early mornings, by the way, just in brackets. But yeah, guys, today was a hard day. This week was hard actually. So we're gonna get into other topics that are to do with beautiful living, and that is my core passion. Yes, I love fashion and luxury, but my main focus is on beholding beauty and bringing more beauty into the world. So there will be conversations around this. Fashion is a large part of it because that's my actual career path. But as a person, like my philosophy is around bringing more beauty into the world. So that's what we'll be doing as we go on. And yes, anyways, have a lovely day, have a lovely evening, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bisous.